What's up, good family? Welcome back to the channel. Before we get into this, stop scrolling for 1 second. If you love women's college basketball, if you live for SEC rivalries, hit that like button right now, because what Dawn Staley just revealed changed everything. Because just days ago, the entire basketball world thought LSU had the upper hand, the headlines were loud, the momentum felt real, and the narrative was clear. South Carolina was finally reacting, but here's the part nobody saw coming. While LSU fans were celebrating, while critics were questioning, Dawn Staley was silent, and when Dawn Staley goes quiet, that's when you should pay attention, because when she finally spoke, she didn't clap back, she didn't defend herself, she didn't mention LSU by name. Instead, she stunned the entire sport with a reveal that flipped the rivalry on its head and sent a clear message to every program chasing headlines instead of championships. So, here's the question: do you think LSU really has the upper hand, or did Dawn Staley just remind everyone who still controls the ERA? Drop your answer in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why this moment wasn't reactio, it was a warning. Let's get into it. For a moment, the entire women's college basketball world believed the balance of power had finally shifted. LSU had the noise, LSU had the momentum, LSU had the headlines. And for the first time in a long time, people whispered something they hadn't dared to say out loud before: Dawn Staley might finally be on the back foot. Cameras loved it, the debate shows fed on it, social media lit up with hot takes claiming South Carolina's grip on the sport was loosening, that Kim Moy had figured it out, cracked the code, and seized the upper hand in the most heated rivalry the women's game has seen in years. LSU fans were loud, confident, certain they thought they were winning the war, but what they didn't see, what no one saw, was Dawn Staley quietly preparing a reveal that would stop the sport in its tracks. Because while LSU celebrated perception, Dawn Staley was engineering reality, and when she finally spoke, college basketball froze. It started with silence, not the awkward kind, the dangerous kind. After LSU's surge, after recruiting chatter heated up, after whispers of internal changes and roster uncertainty swirled around Columbia, Dawn Staley didn't rush to the microphone, she didn't fire back, she didn't engage in the back and forth that had swallowed so many coaches before her. She watched, she listened, and she let the narrative grow. LSU believed that silence meant hesitation. They believed it meant pressure was finally working, that the dynasty had cracks, that South Carolina was reacting instead of leading. That was the mistake, because Dawn Staley has never been a coach who reveals her hand early. Her greatest weapon has always been timing, knowing exactly when the moment is ripe, when the truth lands hardest, and when one sentence can undo months of noise. Behind closed doors, South Carolina wasn't scrambling, they weren't panicking, they weren't trying to keep up with LSU, they were recalibrating. Staley had spent the offseason studying the new era of the sport, the portal. Chaos, nil leverage, shortened attention spans, instant gratification recruiting. She knew the game wasn't just played on the court anymore, it was played in perception, messaging, and belief. And she knew something else. She knew LSU had leaned too far into flash. While LSU pushed headlines, South Carolina was building foundation. While LSU chased immediate dominance, Staley was thinking 3 seasons ahead. While everyone debated who won the off-season, Dawn Staley was quietly assembling a version of her program that would thrive long after the hype faded. That's why when she finally stepped to the microphone, the tone wasn't defensive, it was calm, controlled, surgical. She didn't mention LSU by name, she didn't have to. Everyone knew exactly who she was talking to. She spoke about patience, an era addicted to urgency, about culture surviving noise, about players who buy in versus players who buy hype. And then she dropped the line that sent shock waves through the sport: we're not trying to win the moment, we're trying to own the era. That was the reveal. LSU thought they had the upper hand because they were louder, because they were trending, because they were dominating conversations in May and June. But Dawn Staley revealed that South Carolina wasn't chasing those moments at all. They were operating on a different timeline. She revealed that roster movement wasn't a weakness, it was intentional. That development mattered more than instant gratification. That South Carolina wasn't interested in being crowned in July if it meant being exposed in March. And then she went deeper. She talked about how players were being evaluated differently now. Not just on talent but on resilience. Not just on highlights but on habits. Not just on what they could do immediately but on what they could become under pressure. It was a direct contrast to the LSU model. Without ever saying LSU, that's when the realization hit. This wasn't Dawn Staley react, this was Dawn Staley resetting the entire conversation. Analysts who had crowned LSU the new standard suddenly paused. Former players began nodding along. Coaches around the country recognized the subtext immediately. Staley wasn't conceding, she was drawing a line. She revealed that South Carolina had embraced the chaos of the modern game without sacrificing identity, that didn't control the locker room, that the portal didn't dictate culture, that stars didn't outrank standards, and perhaps most stunning of all, she admitted something few elite coaches ever do, that the program was evolving by choice, not because LSU forced it, not because pressure demanded it, but because greatness requires adapt. That admission stunned college basketball because it shattered the idea that South Carolina was clinging to old formulas. Instead, Staley showed she was ahead of the curve, blending tradition with innovation in a way that very few programs could pull off. LSU thought the upper hand meant attention. Staley revealed the upper hand was alignment. And once that truth landed, the energy shifted instantly. Recruiting conversations changed tone. Players began talking about fit again instead of flash. Recruits started asking different questions about development, about trust, about longevity. She had reframed the rivalry. No longer was it about who won the off-season headlines, it was about who would still be standing when the pressure peaked, when adversity hit, when expectations turned heavy. And that's where Dawn Staley has always lived. Comfort in the pressure. She closed with a statement that didn't sound dramatic, but hit like a warning. March tells the truth. That was it. No insults, no fireworks, no back and forth. Truth. LSU may have thought they had the upper hand, but Dawn Staley revealed something far more dangerous, that South Carolina wasn't chasing them at all. They were waiting for that moment when preparation beats noise, when culture outlasts hype, when the cameras turn away and the real work shows up. In college basketball understood immediately, this wasn't the end of the rivalry, it was the recalibration of power. Because when Dawn Staley finally speaks, it's never to explain herself, it's to remind everyone exactly who she is and why the era still runs through Columbia. And that's what makes this moment so dangerous for the rest of college basketball, because LSU may have won the noise, they may have won the headlines, they may have convinced people the balance of power was shifting, but Dawn Staley didn't fight for attention. She revealed control. She reminded everyone that dynasties don't panic, they don't chase, they don't explain themselves. When the cameras are loud, they wait. And when March arrives, when the pressure is real, when the hype fades, and when every possession tells the truth, that's when culture exposes everything. So now the question isn't whether LSU has the upper hand, the real question is this: who do you trust when the moment is biggest? Is it the program winning the off-season, or the coach who has proven time and time again she knows exactly when a strike? Drop your take in the comments. LSU or South Carolina? If you agree with Dawn Staley's approach, hit that like button. If you think LSU is truly taking over, say it loud and make sure you're subscribed, because this rivalry isn't cooling off, it's just getting started. March is coming.